The physical release of my webcomic Unfamiliar is out in bookstores now. Check out the link below. Hey everybody, it's LavenderTowne. And today I'm going to be testing out a variety of tips that I see about art on Twitter, starting with this super interesting one. I think this is very promising, and I'd never seen this before. So basically the idea is a way to make your sketch to line art transition a little bit better. A lot of people, including myself, have issues where we like our sketch, but we don't end up liking our line art as much, and there's a variety of reasons why this could happen. But basically the tip is suggesting that if you use like a gaussian blur on your sketch, that it makes it a little bit clearer what you're doing with the inking, as well as giving you more of just like general shapes and not having such a feeling of like needing to trace something exactly. So it should in theory make your line art look better and make it easier for you to like keep working and not be super stuck on any particular line in your sketch. So I'm going to try to basically apply this and see how I do. Now when I tried this out myself, at first it was very uncomfortable, I gotta be honest, because I guess I must like having a clean, well, not clean sketch, but a sketch that I can clearly see underneath. But after a few moments I did start to understand the benefits of this. It definitely gives you more of a feeling that you're kind of drawing this for the first time while just having a guide underneath, rather than this feeling of like that you're repeating a previous drawing, which I feel like sometimes your sketches can feel like they are literally the first draft, but it feels like you're duplicating something when you're making the line art, whereas when it's so blurred, it really does feel like you're drawing something kind of new, which I think just psychologically is a little bit more fun. Now, honestly, I feel like this is something that you probably have to test a bunch of times before you know for sure if it really helps you. I actually tried to use this technique a couple other times in the video just to try it more than once, but I think in the end, I'm not actually sure how much it helped me. It didn't feel like things were going faster. I do think that I had a better grip on what my line art actually looked like, which is hugely helpful because that can prevent those horrible moments where you think your line art looks great and then you turn off the sketch layer and it just looks like really clunky and weird. That's definitely happened to me when I haven't lightened my sketch enough, and I feel like this is another great way to combat that. I think that with my recent line art style, which is a little less smooth and a little more sketchy, I think it might have less usefulness, whereas I think if your line art is super smooth, this might be a really good hack for you to try out. The next hack is about painting and coloring the face, so I thought I might as well just use the inking that I already made. And this time it's really interesting because this is something that I don't usually do. This is like an underpainting basically of undertones in the skin. Now, a lot of you who've looked into color theory and do a lot of painting will definitely know that skin has a lot of different colors that you wouldn't necessarily expect in real life. So like blues and yellows and stuff like that. And I think that this little chart is just trying to show you kind of where you can block in those colors and give dimension to the skin. And they even said right on the thing that this can be helpful even if you do stylized art. So I definitely wanted to try it with my super stylized, super cartoony stuff, and I was very doubtful. I was not sure if this would meld well with how stylized my work is, but I was pleasantly surprised, I'm not gonna lie. When I was first blocking in these colors, I was not sure about it, but once I laid the skin tone over it and started to add some more color variation in the other parts of the flats, it started to look more normal to me, and then eventually it started to look like way more dimensional, and when I would take it away it actually looked like really wrong. So this is definitely something I want to play with more. I feel like the blue around the chin maybe I went too hard on. I wish that the hack actually like showed like to what degree you should be seeing this color mapping and undertones underneath the skin tone layer, just because I don't really have a lot of experience with it, and I imagine for a lot of beginners who might be looking into this tip, they might not know exactly how to incorporate this advice, but I do think that it's a highly useful and relatively easy to implement kind of hack, so it's definitely something I'm going to keep trying in the future. It definitely made him look way more interesting and made the art look more advanced somehow. This this next tip was the one I guess I was most skeptical of, just because I feel like this change of angle doesn't necessarily work for all poses and stuff, and also because the like red rectangle in the background doesn't map to the feet, so I wasn't exactly sure what they were trying to say. But as I worked on it, I kind of got what they meant. I think they meant more broadly that if you're going to have a character with no background, and you're going to have a character just sort of like standing there doing a pose, that it would always be beneficial to make that pose more dynamic by switching up the camera angle and making it more exciting. And especially if you're doing it the way that they do it, where the face is closer to the camera, so you're getting more like space of the character's expression, that of course that's going to be more dynamic and appeal to more people, because we all like to look at faces. Now, I think as far as adding appeal, this is 100% true. I think it does work. But that being said, I feel like it doesn't count as an art hack in the same way that some of the other ones do, because it doesn't make, like, all the added appeal you're having to work for. You're literally drawing a more difficult angle and a more complex pose just because the pose is like, you know, at an angle that's harder to draw it. So well, I think it's really good to keep in mind that like your camera should not just be like very like stood on a tripod staring right at your character. If you could make it more exciting, I feel like the amount of extra effort you put in, of course, is going to result in something that is more exciting to look at. I guess that's not always the case, but that was like, I guess, my one gripe with this one. I do think it's a really good thing to keep in mind, though, and it did make me realize that without using some other hacks like the cylinder hack that I've talked about in a short before, it's just very difficult to do this perspective stuff like without any guidelines or anything. I was kind of just freestyling it. I'm not sure why. Like I oftentimes wonder, looking back at these videos, why I didn't make things a little easier on myself by just like, you know, mapping it out a little better. But anyway, I do think it had like kind of a wacky, whimsical look at the end, and I didn't mind it too much. The other thing I realized is that like this is highly effective if the pose that you were going to originally use has a lot of negative space in it, and there's certain poses that are just going to naturally look better, like having the hands by the face. But if both of the characters' hands are down by their hips, I feel like it doesn't make it necessarily that much more dynamic. Whereas, yeah, if the hands are at two different levels, this perspective change is going to do a lot more for you, because one of the hands is going to be like up in the viewer's face and the other one's going to be like, you know, away. So it's definitely something to think about as well when you're posing your characters, if this hack would actually be helpful. Okay, next up, the mask hack. Basically, the way that this one works is that in order to not lose the facial features, you're thinking about the eye sockets and not just the eye. So this prevents some of that like floating facial feature issue that a lot of beginners have. And basically, you're just thinking about like almost like a superhero mask, or like if the character's brow bone was extended, like if, you know, what kind of shadow that would cast. So basically it's just a way to sketch so that you're thinking about where to place things properly. I was very curious about this one because, especially with my most stylized stuff, like my borderline like chibi kind of stuff, I wanted to know if it would work. This one did not guarantee that, so it was definitely going to be a bit of a gamble. So I wanted to draw my little VTube model Lilybell, because she is like one of my more stylized characters. Her eyes are like huge, and I definitely think that when you stylize that crazy, it can be easier to lose placement. So yeah, I definitely wanted to see if this would work. So I tried to think about also some like interesting, like more difficult head and eye positions, and this is another one where I tried the blurring technique with the sketch, which in retrospect I probably shouldn't have done for this particular hack, because you're supposed to be using that mask to your benefit, but I still feel like I got some use out of it. And basically I do feel like it helped me more so with the eyebrow placement, weirdly enough, than the eye placement. But generally I think that if you already have a pretty good idea of the structure of the face to the point where you could just think about the eye sockets and that would help you, I wonder how useful this hack even is, because I feel like for a lot of beginners, like if you just tell them to draw the eye sockets instead of the eyes or a mask, that's going to be just as difficult for them as placing the eyes. But I don't know, if you're more of a beginner, you should try this hack out and let me know if it works for you. Maybe it does help because you're thinking about things in a different way. I don't know, honestly. But in my case, I don't think it helped as much as I would like. I don't think I'll be incorporating this one. It's possible that if a character's head is at a weird angle, or they have a particularly difficult or lopsided facial expression, I might still try this out from time to time. But yeah, I just didn't get the results that I wanted. In fact, one of these drawings I feel like actually looks a little bit worse or weirder, because I felt sort of locked into the mask, and I felt like I couldn't like make my little adjustments. But yeah, it's definitely interesting, and I think it might work a lot better if you have a less super stylized face drawing style. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Just a simple video trying to test out some of these very fascinating Twitter hacks that I'm always hoarding. Let me know if you have a favorite hack, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you to all of my patrons, including Ventali, Sniper, JP25, Lucy Amajiki, Heartless Doll, Finmas Die, Aries Chaos, Live, Salty Jackrabbit, Noose Milk, Ravens Crow, Saucelot, Tea Hill Music, Jabber Dabber Doo, Gender Was Stolen, K, Moo Milk, Kadaria, Deadly Nightshade Art, Astral Fox Art, Expressive Poker Face, Tsubaki, Michael Lavalley, Cutie Pie, Rune Rain Crow, Ice Cream Pal, Kola, JJ Jade, and of course, Libba.